Whoa! I never thought about that!
Okay, look at the phone in your hand right now. You're probably holding it this very second, right? It's literally a piece of magic. We tap, swipe, and scroll all day long, but honestly, how often do we actually stop to think about the absolute physical marvel happening right under the glass? Well, today, we're diving into an explainer on the microscopic architecture of digital memory. We're going on a macro to micro journey, and I promise you, it is mind-blowing. So, here's the big question. How exactly can your phone store literally years of your photos on a tiny chip that's smaller than your own fingernail? Think about it. We just expect this little flat slab of glass and metal to remember every single vacation, every ridiculous pet photo, every video. It feels like magic, but today we're going to demystify that magic. We're going to look at the actual, literal, physical reality of modern storage. Because let's be real, it's not just a few photos. Think about the sheer volume of stuff we cram into this tiny space every single day. We're talking thousands upon thousands of photos, high-definition videos, massive mobile apps, insanely detailed video games, and years, literally years, of text messages. We are casually carrying around entire libraries of data right in our pockets, completely taking it for granted. Okay, let's dive into this. To understand how all of that actually fits, we have to look past the touchscreen interface. Because your phone, it doesn't actually know what a photo of your dog is. It has no idea what a pop song sounds like. Fundamentally, it relies entirely on binary code. Every single selfie, every song, every video gets stripped down and converted into massive patterns of tiny pieces of information, represented strictly as ones and zeros. But what actually are those ones and zeros physically? They aren't just abstract math concepts floating around in the ether. They're actual physical states inside your device. Think of them exactly like microscopic light switches. If a switch is toggled on, boom, that represents a 1. If the switch is toggled off, that's a 0. Every single piece of media you own is just a shockingly massive combination of these physical on and off states. Now, obviously, those microscopic switches need a physical home to live in. And that brings us to flash memory. This is a special storage chip right inside your phone, designed specifically to hold all of these tiny electronic switches. When you drop cash on a phone with, say, 256 gigabytes of storage, you're essentially just buying a larger physical chip that's capable of housing way more of these tiny light switches. And when I say way more, I mean a scale that is genuinely hard for the human brain to even wrap around. We are talking about billions. Billions and billions of these microscopic electronic switches all packed onto a single fingernail-sized chip inside your device. It's almost absurd when you really think about it. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer scale of the miniaturization. It's staggering. To fit billions of switches onto a chip the size of your fingernail, the switches themselves have to be unbelievably tiny. We're at a point where millions of these switches fit into a physical space smaller than a single virus. A virus! It's this microscopic reality that lets modern phones store hundreds of gigabytes, or even terabytes of data. So how does that incredibly tiny switch actually work? Well, these switches are called transistors, and honestly, the best way to think about them is like super tiny buckets. When the chip traps a microscopic amount of electrical charge inside one of these buckets, the phone reads it as an on or a 1. If the bucket is left empty, no charge at all, it reads as an off or a 0. Your phone is constantly reading the electrical patterns inside these billions of microscopic buckets at lightning-fast speeds just to access your data. Okay, let's apply this to the real world. You probably already know that digital images are made of pixels, right? Those tiny individual dots that store specific color and brightness information to make up an image. But how does that visual memory actually translate into this electrical code down at the microchip level? This is where it gets super cool. The crucial point is how we translate those pixel colors into the binary logic we were just talking about. Your phone essentially converts the color of every single pixel into specific numbers. So a specific shade of red equals one specific binary number. Blue is a totally different number. Green is another. And when you combine millions of these colored pixels together, bam, you get your single photo. Your phone remembers that photo simply by recalling the electrical charge for every single 1 and 0 that makes up those exact pixel numbers. Now, once you understand that a single photo is just a massive grid of translated pixels, it makes total logical sense why videos require so much microscopic space. Because a photo is just one grid. A video? That's basically thousands of photos, or frames, flashing very, very quickly to create the illusion of motion. That's exactly why your 4K videos or slow-mo files eat up your storage space so incredibly fast. You're literally forcing the flash memory to store exponentially more of these pixel grids. Let's move to a bit of history and see how this all builds, because we definitely didn't start with microscopic buckets of electricity. Decades ago, early computers were absolutely massive. They filled entire rooms and relied on these giant magnetic tapes and clunky disks to store data. Years later, the invention of tiny transistors and integrated circuits finally kicked off the shrinking process. And today? We rely on incredibly powerful flash memory, continuously pioneered and refined by companies like Intel and Samsung, who've just made storage remarkably smaller and way more powerful over time. But here's the catch. Our demand for storage just keeps growing. We constantly want better games, sharper photos, longer videos, and since our phones aren't really getting physically larger, how do engineers keep increasing storage capacity in the exact same physical space? Well, they do it through some pretty incredible engineering feats. They keep shrinking transistors to even more microscopic levels. They figured out how to cleverly store multiple bits of data in a single cell. And perhaps most importantly, they started stacking memory layers vertically. That vertical stacking actually has a specific name. It's called 3D nanotechnology. See, when engineers realized they were simply running out of flat, horizontal physical space on the microchip to put more of these microscopic switches, they did the only logical thing. They looked up. 3D NAND is a modern engineering method where memory cells are stacked upward in multiple layers rather than just spreading out flat. I love how one of our sources perfectly puts it. Memory is stacked upward like a skyscraper instead of spreading flat. I mean, it's just the perfect visual metaphor. Just like a crowded city that runs out of land has to build skyscrapers to fit more people, engineers are building microscopic skyscrapers of memory cells to pack more of your data into the exact same tiny footprint of a chip. And this brilliantly illustrates just how far we've come. It is absolutely staggering. A single tiny modern memory chip utilizing this 3D NAND technology can literally store more information than entire buildings full of old computers from decades ago. Think about that. All of that physical volume, all of those huge rooms full of giant spinning magnetic tapes, completely replaced by a single chip smaller than your fingernail. So, I'll leave you with this. Isn't it absolutely wild that tiny, invisible electricity, trapped inside microscopic buckets, is holding years of your most precious memories? The next time you open your photo gallery to look back at a vacation or maybe a picture of a loved one, just take a second to appreciate the billions of microscopic electronic switches working together at incredible speeds to bring that moment back to life. It is literally an engineering marvel right in your pocket. Keep exploring, keep wondering, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.
And that's just one tiny big question. Imagine what's next. Subscribe, and let's keep wondering.